just the right footwork, I can make... What did I do?
Baldur's Gate 3 might just be one of the best games I've ever played. If you came here looking for a unique take, then I don't know what to offer you, because holy f***. As someone who's been running D&D for nearly a decade, this game hits every mark again and again and again. From the chaotic angst-riddled companions to the relentless inventory management, from the cast of strange and hilarious characters that inhabit this world, to that sense of unease whenever you make a role that you really want to succeed at. This is undeniably the Dungeons & Dragons experience in its best form. Completely malleable and totally lived in. Sometimes you're doing your own thing and then you find a well and then you go down the well and find a cave with spiders in it, so you spend 2 hours seeing where it goes and killing all the spiders. Sometimes you get ambushed by a pack of hyenas that turn out to be servants of Yinagu and then they wipe your entire team, so now you have to swear vengeance upon them, so that's another few hours wasted. Sometimes you find a merchant who apparently has a tome called the Book of Cheezomancy, so now every waking moment is spent thinking about how to steal such a book. So let's talk about the story. You start off having just been kidnapped by a gang of mind flayers and brought to their giant tentacle ship where they drop a nasty little worm inside your brain. Once you escape, you meet the other adventurers who were taken and bond over how fucked up that whole ordeal was, and agree that you should work together to figure out how to undo it. From there, you are set free in this world to do and say and kill whoever you wish. There is a structure, of course, but the freedom you have within this structure is what's most impressive. Instead of acting as a total sandbox that just reacts to your choices, you're presented with countless decisions based on the wants of whoever you're speaking to, making you feel like an equal player in the setting rather than the person deciding what the story will be and how it will unfold. As an example, there's a group of ogres you can meet in a village in the game's first act. I've played through this with 2 different characters and gotten 2 completely different results, but it never felt like the world was bending to my whim. They remain ogres in the way everyone thinks of ogres, so whether you have a positive experience or a negative experience with them, it will always be an ogre experience. Does that make sense? Basically, you're not making people do what you want. You're making them do things in the way that you want, in the way that works for them. Right? No. To make a story as lengthy and detailed as this, using an already existing world like the Forgotten Realms, and then to fill it with characters that feel alive and complex and autonomous as this, is an achievement I can't say that I've ever seen before. And that's before we even touch on the fact that your journey can really take you anywhere. You get dragged from jagged cliffs to the depths of the Underdark. One moment you're in a goblin camp, and then all of a sudden you're in a cursed forest. After countless hours, you finally arrive in Baldur's Gate, and some guy calls you a cuck.
Cock.
What the hell? In the 50 hours I've played in my solo run, plus the 20 I've put in for a multiplayer game, it took less than an hour to see actual differences between these 2 parts. While they weren't massive, they were notable. They affected the way the game continued. There is no end to the branching paths you can take in this game, and they are presented to you at almost every opportunity. That's not just plot points and important NPCs either. Your companions will all give you choices that can change your relationship as the game continues. The characters you travel with are all well-known archetypes in the D&D world, but of course they're accompanied by their own haunting backstories that make them unique. We've got the Little Green Dragon Rider, Richard Iowini, Devil May Thirst, the world's worst kept secret, the world's worst decision maker, and Shadowheart.
Never gave them much thought.
Going in, I was expecting to connect with these characters to a degree like any story game, but the level at which I am now invested is scary. Larian have made these NPCs seem like real, living, breathing people with an incredible amount of detail in their lives. When you meet them, you're all still reeling from the squid napping, so your primary focus is survival. Then you get this slow, sneaky unraveling of the cast, even when you're not expecting it. I gave pretty much all of my attention to Shadowheart for about 50 hours, and yet I'm now familiar with all of them to a ridiculous degree. I didn't give a shit about Astarion when I started. The overly charming, rakish archetype isn't one that I'm really interested in, and yet he's still evolved as a character based on what we went through, even if it was happening on the sidelines, which made me connect with him all the more. This is a guy that I dismissed as a one-note dandy whore when I first met him, and now he's my good friend.
I can't even tell if any of you are acting strange because you've been replaced, or because this group is full of weirdos.
To complete this striking team, I made a tiefling storm sorcerer named Xanthia, which is spelled with an X. She has heterochromia and a golden face tattoo that hides an old battle wound by her eye. If you were to average out every D&D character ever created, I'm pretty sure you'd get this. Considering how big and long and grand this game is, it feels like the depth of the story here shouldn't be possible considering how unique some conversations can get. I had one interaction with a suspicious and powerful figure who offered to help me for an unnamed price. Immediately afterwards, I talked to Shadowheart, who asked me what I thought of them. I said I didn't trust them, and she said she was intrigued by the deal. In my efforts to continue wooing her, I quickly agreed, and then she got mad at me for making her feel like she made me doubt myself. And I felt bad in real life for being a poser.
I wanted a sneaky sneak. Can I just deal with him? Oh my god, is the whole town here?
As for the combat, it is just as meticulous as the story. The battles here are stressful, they are interesting, but most importantly, they reward creativity and out-of-the-box thinking. Or you can just shove everyone. I mean, shoving really, god, they've really made shoving so powerful. There was one fight I had in the Underdark where I just shoved all the enemies into a pit before I set the ladders on fire. They couldn't get back up, so I just pelted them with cantrips for about 15 minutes. It was dumb, but it was D&D.
Is this guy fighting? What's he doing? Oh. Oh, okay. No, he was fine with it. He didn't like the bear.
The way that you can tackle each problem also brilliantly intertwines with the filled-to-the-brim toy box of monsters that Larian will use to make your life harder and show that they're not afraid to challenge you, especially early on. I went up against a spectator that might as well have been a Beholder Jr. at level 4. This shit has me rethinking how hard I'm going on my own players in my real-life game.
Do we have... Okay, what? Oh, what?
Obviously, no game is without fault, so let's talk about those. The inventory can bug out pretty easily, swapping out party members is a chore that could be way simpler, not being able to access the inventory if the companions are not currently in your party sucks, and then there's karmic dice. This should not be turned on by default. If you want to roll your dice with actual random odds, then go and turn off karmic dice. It makes a huge difference. Those are my major issues with this game. All of these are easily fixable and barely a blemish on what it has to offer. If you want to point to a single reason for Larian's massive success, the biggest one would be that the company remains unbridled by corporate overlords and the artistry of its developers is allowed to shine through. It almost feels like this game was impossible. A massive branching path story in an incredibly magical and detailed world inhabited by companions that will continue to tug at your heartstrings and pull you into their lives in ways you wouldn't expect. I can't finish praising this game. For every aspect of it that they've tackled, they've excelled in. The splendor and magic and humor and tension and wonder that they've created and put in this game feels like a miracle. Baldur's Gate 3 is a landmark title. It is a turning point for RPGs and just video games in general. This is a breakthrough phenomenon that I refuse to call lightning in a bottle in the hopes that we get another one in maybe 6 to 8 to 10 years. Because from what we've seen, the wait is worth it. Baldur's Gate 3 is a triumph of talent, artistry, and dedication. And they have in-game newspapers that you can buy and read. Bloris Mead Honey gives you money-saving advice.